Chapter 23. The Forgotten Clans. Lantern light flickered across the fractured streets of Cardiff, casting molten gold across broken stone and bodies. Smoke hung low, curling in the gaps where buildings once stood. The air buzzed, thick with the static crackle of spent magic, spellfire from the breach, still humming hours after the walls had fallen. Above the wreckage, a new standard rose, a black banner stitched with a silver flame. It snapped in the cold wind, defiant and unbroken, a message to the council: we're still here. Decima Wren stood atop the shattered northern gates, boots braced on cracked stone, the fire mark on her wrist glowing in time with the ley lines beneath her feet. The magic pulsed, raw, restless, waiting. She could feel it in the bones of the city, in the broken streets, in the blood on the cobblestones. Below, hundreds gathered, rebels, witches, gnomes, outlaws, forgotten souls. A fractured army held together by nothing but a shared fire and the woman standing above them. Cassian appeared at her side, breath ragged, his cloak torn at the hem, streaked with ash and blood. His eyes were sharp, but there was exhaustion in the tight line of his jaw. "The council's inquisitors are scattered," he said, voice low. "We hold the outer wards, but the inner circle." He shook his head, lips tightening. "Their loyalists are dug in deep. We can't hold them back much longer." Decima's eyes stayed fixed on the skyline. The towers of the High Council stabbed into the dusk like jagged teeth. The city was broken, but the council still held the core. "We can't take the circle alone," she said quietly. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Her fire mark burned hotter, aching deep in her chest. Cassian followed her gaze. "You're thinking about them." "I'm thinking about all of it," Decima murmured. She felt the weight of it pressing down. Every step had led her here. The bond, the fire, the visions, the whispers that had haunted her for months. Daniel. She swallowed hard, a flicker of his face flashing behind her eyes, his steady gaze, the feel of his hand on hers, the way her fire mark had pulsed when they touched, as if it knew. A gust of cold wind dragged her back. A hush fell as the air shifted. The ground trembled. Sarenfay descended from the clouds, her wings folding tight as she landed with a thud that shook the battlements. Scales shimmered with the faint glow of dying embers. Her breath curled in the cold air, hot and smoky. She lowered her massive head, eyes locked on Decima. Her voice rumbled low, edged with warning. "Then you must call to those who were once cast out. The ones buried by the council's greed. The ones who remember what the city forgot." Decima's heart clenched. The words settled into her bones like an echo from the past. She had heard the stories, old whispers, names buried in the cracks of the ley lines. "The Forgotten Clans," she said, voice barely above a whisper. The words tasted like ash and memory, exiled, forced underground. But they survived. She turned to the crowd, her voice gaining strength. "The subway weavers, the Nightforge gnomes, the moonlit witches of the Vale. They were pushed out, left to rot in the dark, but they're still here." Cassian frowned, his expression tight. "They remember betrayal, not banners. Why would they trust us now?" Decima met his eyes. Her fire mark burned bright, heat radiating from her skin. "Because this isn't about banners." Her voice was steel. "It's about survival. It's about taking back what the council stole from all of us." Cassian's gaze held hers for a beat, then he nodded once, sharp and grim. Sarenfay shifted, scales glinting. "The path is beneath your feet. Take it or lose the war." Decima turned. The alley behind them was choked with rubble and smoke. But in the center, a broken archway shimmered faintly. Runes glowed along the stone, old magic, nearly lost. A doorway veiled by glamour, hidden from all but those who knew where to look. Her fire mark pulsed. The bond thrummed in her chest. For a heartbeat, she thought she felt Daniel, his presence faint, like the ghost of a touch, the echo of a voice in the dark. The memory steadied her. "This is it," she said. She drew a sharp breath and stepped forward. The glamour parted like fog around her. Cassian followed close, sword drawn, tension in every step. Sarenfay moved behind them, her breath a low rumble, heat rising in waves from her skin. The air changed, colder, damp. The tunnel walls pressed close, carved with runes so old they barely held their glow. They were beneath the city now, beneath the council's reach, beneath the war. The air grew colder as they descended, the walls damp with old magic and time. Threads of silver drifted through the dark, thin, glinting lines like spider silk, alive with a faint hum. Cassian's breath fogged in the cold. His sword remained drawn, his eyes scanning every shadow. Decima's fire mark burned hotter with every step, pulsing in her wrist like a second heartbeat. She could feel the weight of the city above her, the broken streets, the banners of flame, the eyes waiting for her to lead. And somewhere in the dark, that flicker of Daniel's presence again, distant but real, like a tether across the bond. The tunnel widened, and they stepped into a chamber woven with light. The subway weavers emerged, pale figures moving between strands of woven mist. Their bodies shimmered as if made of moonlight and smoke, faces hidden behind drifting veils of silver thread. They did not speak at first. They simply watched, the air tense, sharp. Then their leader stepped forward. Her face was half hidden by strands of light, but her eyes were sharp, dark, and knowing. "Queen of Flame," she said, her voice soft, dangerous. "Your summons unraveled the locks." Decima didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "We need your eyes. The council hides in places only you can see. Help us, and we'll burn their lies to ash." The weaver tilted her head, threads drifting like mist around her hands. For a long moment she said nothing, just watched, silent. Then she reached forward, her fingers barely grazing the air before Decima's chest. Threads of silver light bloomed between them, a web forming in the space between heartbeats. A glowing map unfurled in the dark, tunnels, gates, hidden passages beneath the city. "We see what others bury," the weaver said. Her voice was a whisper, but it echoed. "We will help you unweave their lies." Decima held her gaze, a nod passing between them. She felt the threads brush against her skin, leaving a faint sting, a reminder that nothing came without a price. Cassian leaned in, voice low. "Can we trust them?" Decima didn't look away from the weaver. Her fire mark pulsed once, hard in time with the ley lines. "We have to," she said. The subway weavers faded back into the dark, threads drifting behind them like smoke in the wind. Decima's breath caught. This was only the beginning. The path narrowed again, the air growing hotter. The walls glowed faintly, lines of rune-etched metal pulsing, like veins beneath the stone. The hum of ancient machinery thrummed through the ground, deep and steady. Cassian wiped sweat from his brow, muttering under his breath, "Feels like we're walking into a forge." He wasn't wrong. As they moved deeper, the temperature rose. Sparks floated ahead, tiny motes of light dancing in the dark. The air smelled of iron, oil, and smoke. Then the tunnel opened into a cavern, a vast space carved beneath the city's bones. The night forge. Rows of half-buried anvils glowed red-hot, flames roaring from open vents in the floor. Gnomes worked in teams, hammering chainmail and blades into shape, their faces streaked with soot, eyes sharp behind goggles and metal-rimmed lenses. Sparks showered the air with every strike. The sound of hammer on metal was constant, a rhythm that seemed as old as the stone itself. Their captain stepped forward, taller than the others, her beard bound in copper wire. A heavy hammer rested on her shoulder, the head blackened from use. She looked at Decima with no fear, just steady, calculating eyes. "Fire Queen," she rumbled, her voice low and rough. "We forge for no master but fire. If yours burns true, show us." The challenge in her words was clear. Decima stepped forward, the heat licking at her skin. Her heart pounded, the fire mark flaring in response to the forge's energy. She unsheathed the crystal rod, its end dulled and cracked from battle. Holding it in both hands, she lifted it high, the flames reflecting in her eyes. "Forged in old fire," she said, her voice steady and sure. "Let it burn anew." For a moment no one moved. Then the captain took the rod. Her fingers curled around it with surprising care. She examined the fractures, turning it in the light, then nodded once. Without a word she turned to the forge. The gnomes moved in practiced rhythm. Molten metal was drawn from the fires, folded into the rod, layered with moon steel, and hammered flat with runes of old. Sparks flew, heat surging in waves. Decima's breath caught as she watched the metal glow, a bright, living thing. When the captain returned, the rod had changed. The dulled end was gone, replaced by a blade edge of silver and flame. It sang with magic, the air around it shimmering faintly. The captain placed it in Decima's hands. "Forged for battle," she declared, her voice rough but clear. "And we fight with you." A shiver ran down Decima's spine. This wasn't just an alliance, it was a promise. The final path was narrower, darker. The heat of the forge faded into a strange, cold hush. The air shifted, cool, damp, and heavy with a faint scent of earth and old magic. Cassian's voice broke the quiet, low and uncertain. Feels like we've walked into a grave. Decima didn't answer. Her fire mark pulsed faintly, a steady beat against her skin. A shiver crawled down her spine, but she didn't stop. The passage opened into a cavern unlike any before. Moss glowed faintly on the walls, casting a soft, greenish light. The air was still, so still it felt like the stone itself was holding its breath. This wasn't a forge. It wasn't a tunnel. It was something older, an ancient grove, hidden beneath the heart of Cardiff. And in the center of it all, a silver pool shimmered, perfectly still, its surface reflecting a sliver of moonlight from somewhere unseen. They were not alone. The moonlit witches emerged from the mist like echoes of another time, faces painted with lunar sigils, moonflowers woven into their hair. Their eyes gleamed with quiet power. Their matriarch stood by the pool, her back to them, long hair falling in silver waves down her cloak. Her voice carried without turning. "You are the first to stand here since the sealing," she said. Decima stepped forward, her boots silent on the moss. Her fire mark shimmered, casting faint light across her skin. "I have not come to reign," she said, voice steady. "I have come to restore. Cardiff belongs to all her children, not just the crowned." For a long moment nothing moved. Then the witches began to circle the pool, their hands brushing the mossy ground in a slow, deliberate rhythm. The air thickened, buzzing faintly with magic. The pool's surface shimmered, and a hidden moon appeared, its reflection glowing faintly, a quiet light in the dark. A voice, quiet but resolute, rose from the witches as one. "We stand." The words rippled outward, soft but powerful. Moon in flame. Sarenfe, silent until now, lowered her great head in acknowledgement. A soft rumble vibrated through the cavern. Decima closed her eyes for a moment. The weight of it all settled on her shoulders. The rebellion, the magic, the lives that now looked to her. One by one, the lost pieces of Cardiff, its past, its pain, its hidden power were gathering. And when she opened her eyes, her voice steady, she knew it wasn't just her fight anymore. It was theirs. Now they marched together. Decima stood at the edge of the moonlit grove, the silver pool still glowing faintly behind her. The cavern felt alive, charged with a power that was older than the council, older than any spell she'd ever learned. Her breath came slow, steady, but the fire mark on her wrist pulsed harder, stronger, as if the earth itself beat in time with her. Cassian moved to her side, his voice low and rough. "They followed you." Decima let the words settle, a quiet ache twisting in her chest. "They didn't follow me," she said softly, almost to herself. "They followed the fire, the promise of something better." Her gaze swept the cavern, the subway weavers fading into the shadows, the Nightforge gnomes preparing weapons at their fires, the moonlit witches chanting quietly, their magic weaving into the air like threads of moonlight. And behind it all, she felt it. The bond. It hummed faintly beneath her skin, a thread pulling tight. Daniel. A memory flashed, his hand brushing hers, the way his eyes had met hers with a question he hadn't dared to ask. Her fire mark pulsed in response, a sharp flicker that left her breathless for a moment. He wasn't here, but he was with her, always. Her hand curled around the crystal rod, the new blade singing softly in the air. It felt different now, heavier, alive. Cassian's voice broke the quiet. "What now?" Decima turned to face him, her eyes burning bright, her voice clear. "Now we take the council." Her words cut through the air like a blade. Cassian nodded once, a grim smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Around them, the forgotten clans began to move, gathering weapons, preparing spells, whispering quiet oaths in the old tongue. Sarenfe shifted, her massive form casting long shadows across the stone. Her voice rumbled low, a promise. "The fire will burn until the chains are broken." Decima closed her eyes. The fire mark burned hot beneath her skin. The bond thrummed steady, like a drumbeat in her blood. They had come together. The forgotten, the betrayed, the lost. And now they would rise as one. Decima lifted the rod high, the blade catching the faint light of the pool. "This is our city," she said, her voice echoing through the cavern. "And we're taking it back."